Shabbos. If you Google Lot's wife, you will see pictures of what literally looks like um, a statue of a woman who turned into salt. The Talmud actually asks if you see the statue or the Lot's wife, you make a blessing. You make a blessing to true judge. You make a blessing to those who save the righteous. Lot was saved. And so it seems like this is something real and tangible. Of all the miracles that happened during the Bible, this is the only one that actually has a physical expression of it now in that area of the Dead Sea. So what's the meaning behind it? What's the lesson? What's the message? Now, the fact is we don't know exactly if this one or that, if this image or that image is Lot's wife, but we do know that one of them is. So Sodom, where Lot lives, in this week's Torah portion, we read how God overturns it because of their wickedness. What was their wickedness about? They were simply extremely selfish, self-centered, and concerned to make sure that no one who lived outside of Sodom had any entry into their land, to the extent that they made laws prohibiting any form of charity. You could not give charity to anyone outside of Sodom, and because they had a lush land, they had minerals and metals and agriculture, and they didn't want to share. So they made these rules. Anyone found, and rules number one, anyone who came, they would just let them, Talmud tells them they would put them on a bed. And if they were too long for the bed, they'd chop off parts of their bodies so that they fit the bed. And if they were too short, they would elongate them. Obviously, we can imagine the torture, the cruelty of these people. And there's a story told in the Talmud about a young lady from Sodom who was actually generous. It was, according to the Medrash, a daughter of Lot. And she was generous with a poor person. She would hide a piece of bread in her jug, and that way she was able to feed them. And when the people of Sodom found out about it, they smeared her with honey, put her on top of the tower of the city, and released the bees who stung her to death. And it's that actually caused the ultimate decree that this city has to be destroyed. So the city of Sodom is going to be destroyed. Lot, who's Avram's nephew, however, for the sake of Avram, is going to be saved. And Lot and his wife are taken by the angel with his two daughters, and said, okay, come with me, we're saving you because God's destroying the city. And as they're leaving the city, Lot's wife looks behind, and they're warned beforehand, do not look behind you. Go forward, go to Avram. She looks behind and she turns into a pillar of salt. So what's the idea behind her turning into a pillar of salt? So Rashi tells us because she was stingy with salt. She didn't want to give salt to the guests when the angels came. They thought they were people, and Lot is feeding them. He asked his wife for salt, and she became very indignant. How dare you give them salt? Now, Lot, of course, is Avram's nephew, and Lot's wife is probably a resident from Sodom, and so therefore she has the characteristics of the people of Sodom. She doesn't want to give the salt, and that's why she turns into salt. But you know what? She didn't want to give salt. She probably didn't want to give olive oil or black pepper either. Why she necessarily turned into salt? So one way of seeing it is because the punishment of the people of Sodom was with salt. We know it's a salty area there now. We have the Dead Sea, either because it was like kind of a cloud of salt that came upon them, and that's how they were destroyed, or is it because the moisture of the sea was burnt up, and therefore what was left was salt? But in any event, it seems clear in the Torah, it's mentioned later on as well in the book of Deuteronomy, that there was a salt invasion or involvement in the destruction of Sodom. And so therefore, it's natural that if she would be affected by it, she would also be affected by the salt, just like the rest of the city. But why salt? What's the idea behind it? So what was the debate between Lot and his wife of not wanting to give salt? It was the debate as follows. How do we view being generous and hospitable and charity. Lot says, yes, I know for the time being, we're missing something. We're losing out. We're giving something away from ourselves. But you know what? It's like salt. If you put salt into food, it preserves it. It makes it tastier. So yes, we're lacking something for the moment, but actually it enables us to grow our financial well-being, because charity is not something that you're losing. It's actually something that you're giving that will make what you have develop even further, gain even more. Why is that? How does that work? Well, the perspective of this is as follows. God feeds everyone, us and everyone else. The only thing is that some people God gives directly to, and some people he gives indirectly. So sometimes he needs to help someone else or an organization or a person. He puts it into our account, but it's not ours. It's there in deposit for someone else. If we're an honest banker and we give the other person, then we can continue to be God's banker. And if we don't, then we start losing out. So Lot's arguing, saying giving is not actually giving something that's our own, or giving something that is deposited with us for somebody else. And that helps us remain a banker. That helps us remain the God's banker. So it's actually a blessing for us. So therefore, it's imperative for us to do so. You know, the story of an individual who was not so wealthy, but he would be very meticulous in giving 10% of his earnings to charity. And then he became blessed. His business really thrived. And when 10% became 6 figures, 7 figures, he kind of started saying, oh, maybe I should give a little less. And he did so. And ultimately, the wheel of fortune turned against him. And he went to the rabbi and asked him, why is this? I'm still giving lots of charity. He says, well, God has deposited money with you for these organizations, for these other people. And if you're not going to be giving it to them, then he needs to find another account, another banker. So this is the debate between Lot and his wife. And Lot's wife turns into salt is to remind us of the importance, as the Talmud uses the term melech mammon chaser, that what is the salt of money? Lacking the money, giving it away, giving away the money. That is the salt that preserves the money. For this, we have to have the right attitude. So this explains a very interesting Mishnah in Pirkei Avot. Mishnah Pirkei Avot says as follows. It says there are 4 character types among men. There's one who says what is mine is yours, what is yours is mine. Okay, that guy is like he's off the planet. He's an ignoramus. One who says what's mine and mine and what is yours is yours. That person this is an average kind of perspective. But there are those who say that this is the character of the people of stone. Big difference, average to people of stone. So the explanation of that is that if you say it once, it's okay. But if that becomes your entire perspective, what's mine is mine, what's yours is yours, ultimately you will become people of stone. Ultimately become so full of this is mine, I'm not letting anyone have any, and you become actually fully self-centered, and to the point that one could become cruel to other person's needs. And then the Mishnah continues and says, one who says what is mine is yours and what's yours is yours, that's a chassid. And one who says what is mine, what is yours is mine, he's a rasha. Now the question is, these last 2 statements, well, of course, I mean, someone says what's mine is mine and what's yours is mine. How does that even fit into a book that's meant to be about piety? Obviously, that's wicked. So the Rebbe explains that doesn't mean that he's not giving charity. It means someone who gives charity, but he says, what is yours is mine. What I gave you, I really could have had it myself. I could have used it for my family. So be very grateful for the fact that I gave you, because I gave you, and what you have is really mine. That's not a good character trait. Even when you give it away, but just saying that what I gave is mine, that's negative. Conversely, the chassid says, what is yours, what is mine is yours, which means he says so. It doesn't necessarily do so because it doesn't have to be able to give everything away, but he just makes another person feel that you and me are one, that I don't keep my things for myself and you things for yourself, but rather have an open heart, an open home for you. That's the way of the chassid, to make the other person feel, give them a sense of dignity and a sense of closeness to them, that they're just part of your home and your family. That's what that aspect is. That's the anti-Lot's wife. And one more point. Torah tells us that Lot's wife looked behind him and she turned into a pillar of salt. What's the message behind them? First of all, she was very concerned. What's going to happen after he dies? Who's going to take care of me? She was so self-centered. That was her whole issue. She looked behind him, after him. What's going to be? And second of all, the second message of Lot's wife looking behind him is that, very often we leave a place. We might be involved in a business or in a relationship or in a job, and we say, or in a community, and we say, I wish I was somewhere else. And then what happens is that one moves jobs, moves community, moves relationships, or whatever, and nothing changes. Because sometimes the problem is within yourself. And if you don't change your own mindset, nothing is changing. You could change places, you could change people, you can change environments, but if you don't change, you're still living within yourself. And many times that's your own attitude is the problem. You have to change your perspective and change your attitude, and that changes everything else. So Lot's wife looks behind, is still back in Sodom. She turns into the salt. Let's remember that if we are in circumstances that are not the best for us, we need to change ourselves first. And whatever we do, we always have to remember that the essential characteristic of positivity of the children of Abraham are those who have Abraham's generosity and hospitality. Shabbos.